Little update before we start this week's episode. It turns out that a couple of days after I released my last video, the Wikipedia redesign, Wikipedia actually completely changed their user interface and it looks oddly familiar. Now, I'm not saying that they took inspiration from my video in any way. In fact, it's very unlikely they could have, given the lead time it would take to build something like this. But it's really serendipitous how everything kind of just happened at the same time. Wikipedia is a very long established internet company. They've been around for 20-something years, and they very rarely change their interface. So it's very strange that within a couple of days of me releasing my video, they release an interface update that looks very similar to my experimental redesign. Really cool, but it just goes to show you that good design isn't random. It's not just an assortment of ideas that artists generate. There's principles you can follow, and if you follow those principles, you'll usually arrive at the same general conclusions which work for highly functional UIs. So you can see they've got that same sidebar, and they've dramatically simplified the navigation to be more search-focused. These are two of those paradigms that I advocated for in the previous design. So that's really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. But anyway, going back to this week, we're taking it easy this week. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but we're going to be redesigning something from a subscriber's suggestion, and we're going to be redesigning the GameFAQs single forum post experience. I used to go on GameFAQs a lot when I was younger. I'm a little nerd, what can I say? Playing World of Warcraft, used to play a lot of Skyrim as well, and I would always kind of be trolling on the forums, looking for interesting workarounds and strategies and stuff like that. So obviously it's not really as popular these days, and the UI clearly shows that it's a bit dated, and there's a lot of room for improvement. But I figured we haven't done a forum layout yet. We did Reddit, but this is more of a dedicated forum. So I'm going to give this one a stab and see what we come up with. Of course, we've got the style guide as always here. We're using a spattering of blacks and grays. We've got those blue hues from the inspiration image over here, or the reference image rather. Some secondary color that we will use semantically. And then I'm just trying to have a little more fun with this one. I'm playing around with some interesting fonts to kind of get that modern kind of GameFAQs feel in there, and I'm using a font called, I think it's Baegel. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it looks more kind of like spacey, modern, which seems like the kind of aesthetic they were going for when they first designed this. So gonna take this and try to turn it into something sexy. We've got 3 user stories, really straightforward. As a user, I want to create a forum post to share information with other players or ask a question. And I want to reply to post participants to get a conversation going and see other related topics. And that's it. So, gonna get stuck in here and I'll report back in maybe about an hour. Starting out with the site navigation, and once again the goal here is simplification. Taking a lot of the existing links out, replacing them with drop downs and things that we can use to hide away a lot of the complexity. Unless a user wants to dig into that complexity, they can do so in the drop down. And condensing the menu into a primary menu and a secondary nav menu so that we have more space for the content body below. One thing, of course, that the existing UI did quite well was that the title of the forum post was big and bold, so it pulled my attention almost immediately. But I'm taking that a step further, making it even bigger, not as bold, but much bigger, so that your eyes go straight to it and there's absolutely zero ambiguity as to what the focal point of this page is. These two buttons to have the user receive notifications or add the post to one of their favorites were in the existing UI just two icons. And I want to underscore that whenever you can add a label to a button, you really want to do that because iconography is very specific to a particular language domain. And it's not always 100% clear to a user what that heart might mean if perhaps you go to a different culture altogether. So keeping the labels make it easier to make things international, and of course make things very explicit so there's no ambiguity. For the post replies themselves, the goal here was to focus on clarity of the message, of course, but then also give a little bit of personality to the user as well. Obviously, on forums like these, users they want to carve out an identity for themselves, and they want to showcase that identity in their profile somehow. So giving them a bigger avatar and a little space for a signature as well, kind of made sense here. You don't always want to do this, but when you want to put multiple call to actions on one page and they're all kind of somewhat primary, so in this example we have sign up and create new post, you can use saturated colors. You just want to alternate between the ones you use so you don't have two big blue buttons, because then it's hard for the user to instinctually distinguish between the two of them. So here we've got the big blue saturated button and the big blue black the big black button. That gives us some meaningful difference between the two, while still communicating to the user that these are primary actions. And here you'll see me make a bit of a mistake where I accidentally emphasize the sidebar by adding a drop shadow. Generally speaking, if you add a drop shadow to things, it emphasizes that container because it seems to pop out of the screen. Later I go back and correct this and just add a subtle gray background. But generally speaking, for sidebars, you want them subdued because that, by their nature, they're secondary to the main content. So that's a heuristic you should generally keep in mind when designing these things. And finally, I found it quite difficult to figure out who the actual original poster was on the existing GameFAQs layout. Obviously, it's going to be the first person, right? But how do I know they're not the first person to reply to the question, which is the title of the post? So here, having a distinction between the OP and the rest of the posters, I think would be a meaningful lift to the UI. Alright, gonna go ahead and stop there. I think that this is a significant leap forward, despite the fact that I'm very clearly phoning it in today. And all things considered, compared to the previous UI, where there was lots going on, lots of blues everywhere, not really sure where my attention should go necessarily. And then we have the nice new UI here with all the controls in the places you'd expect them to be. There's still quite a few different controls. The way that they're colored and positioned makes it so that it doesn't pull your attention way too much. We've got the main focus of the forum here on the left, which is very readable and interactable, and all the metadata is subdued when necessary. And it kind of feels like GameFAQs too, right? It has that kind of robotic, edgy kind of aesthetic going for it. And yeah, I like it. But let me know if you do anything differently in the comments below. I do have a couple of things I think I would like to tweak about it, but I'm forcing myself to stop now. So if you want to tear it to shreds in the comments below, feel free. I'm going to go have a nap, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Take care.